You ever experience one of those moments where time just freezes and your stomach drops in a single instant? That's exactly what happened the night I heard the deafening crash that nearly knocked me out of my chair. At first, I honestly thought it was an earthquake. My windows rattled like loose teeth, the walls quivered as if they'd collapse, and my dog bolted under the table, barking like he was possessed. But when I sprinted outside, it wasn't an earthquake waiting for me. It was something far worse. My garage door was crushed inward, crumpled like a tin can under a boot. Sparks danced in the dark from torn wires, the smell of burning insulation sharp in the air. And sitting right in the middle of the wreckage was the one sight I never thought I'd have to witness. My Lamborghini rockin', my dream car, my years of hard work turned to rubble. The once flawless frame now shattered, mangled beyond recognition by pure recklessness. And the cherry on top? The culprit behind the wheel of the busted-up SUV that had plowed straight through my garage was none other than the teenage son of the most infamous nightmare in our neighborhood. HOA Karen. Yes, that Karen. The one who littered my mailbox with snide, passive-aggressive notes about keeping the community's aesthetic. The same woman who complained relentlessly about my car's engine growl every morning. The same busybody who once tried to fine me for leaving my trash cans out 10 minutes past schedule. Now her son had rammed a 2-ton steel box right through my property, wiping out a car worth more than her entire house. He stumbled out of the SUV, eyes wide like a deer in headlights, stammering excuses about how the brakes had failed, insisting it was an accident. But here's the problem. Accidents like this don't just happen. Not when I'd heard his mother rant time and time again about how sports cars ruin the peace, and how she wouldn't mind if someone taught me a lesson. My gut screamed that this wasn't some random mishap. It felt calculated, like all of her simmering hatred had finally boiled over and exploded through her reckless kid. I stood frozen, staring at the twisted ruin of what had once been my pride and joy. The car I'd poured years of sweat and sacrifice into. Every shattered window, every warped panel, every dent felt like a personal punch to the chest. And before I could even fully take it in, Karen herself stormed up to the wreck. Did she rush to check her son? Did she even glance at the destruction? No! She jabbed a finger at me and shrieked, "This is your fault! If you didn't flaunt that ridiculous car, none of this would have happened!" That was the moment it hit me. Fixing the Lamborghini might be possible, but surviving this woman and her entitled teenage menace, that was going to be the real battle. Her words cut deeper than the glass crunching beneath my boots. I stood there in the chaos, shattered glass glinting under the porch light, twisted metal groaning, gasoline fumes sharp in the air, and she dared to blame me. My Lamborghini, the crown jewel of my collection, sat ruined. And yet she was acting like I had somehow taken control of her son's SUV and rammed it into my own garage. Her boy Jason couldn't have been more than 17. He leaned against the hood of the wrecked SUV, trying to look unbothered, but I saw the truth. His hands shook. His jaw trembled even as he muttered, under his breath, that it wasn't his fault. The perfect mix of inexperience and arrogance. Exactly what you'd expect from Karen's kid. Pulled out my phone and dialed 911. My voice was steady, but inside I was burning with rage. The dispatcher assured me officers and fire rescue were already on the way in case the leaking fuel sparked up. But as soon as I hung up, Karen lunged toward me, shrieking, "Don't you dare call the cops on my son! This was just a mistake. Insurance will cover it." "You're completely overreacting." Overreacting? My Lamborghini had a hole in its roof big enough to swallow a lawn chair. My garage door was split in half like cardboard, oil bleeding across the driveway, sparks popping from crushed wiring. And she had the audacity to dismiss it as if it were a minor scratch. That's when it dawned on me. This woman wasn't just entitled. She was dangerous, and then in the glow of flashing red and blue, her performance shifted in the blink of an eye. As the police cruisers pulled up, Karen transformed. The screeching banshee was gone, replaced instantly by a trembling, wide-eyed victim. Karen clutched Jason's arm like he was some fragile child, whispering about how he was just a sweet boy who'd made a tiny mistake. She even tried to tell the officers that my garage was built too close to the road, claiming my negligence was to blame for the crash. But the officers weren't fooled. They walked the scene, jotted notes, and one of them pulled Jason aside to question him directly. His shaky excuse about the brakes failing didn't line up with the skid marks carved deep into the pavement. To my eyes, it was obvious. He'd slammed the gas, lost control, and aimed straight into my garage. I overheard one officer mutter under his breath, "This doesn't add up." Kid was going way too fast for brakes to just give out. That comment gave me hope. Maybe the truth would finally cut through the lies. But just as the police were wrapping up, Karen leaned in close, her breath hot against my ear, and hissed, "If you push this, you'll regret it. The HOA will bury you." It wasn't just a threat. It was a declaration of war. The morning after the crash, I thought I'd wake to peace, maybe even relief knowing law enforcement had been involved. Instead, what greeted me was a bright yellow slip taped to my front door. At first, I thought it was from the insurance adjuster or maybe the city inspector. But no, it was from the HOA. The stiff, formal wording barely disguised the meaning. Your property is in violation of community appearance standards. Garage door damage must be repaired within 7 days or fines will accrue. 7 days? My garage looked like a meteor had punched through it, and they expected it spotless in a week. I nearly tore the notice in half right there. But then I saw the signature at the bottom. Karen, HOA president, of course. Her son had destroyed my property, and now she was twisting her little position of power to turn me into the villain. By that afternoon, I stormed down to the HOA office, notice clutched in my hand. The place reeked of stale coffee and industrial cleaner. And there she was, Karen, sitting behind the desk like some smug queen on her throne. The moment she saw me, her lips curled into a sly smile. "You got my note," she said, her voice dripping with pride. I slammed the paper onto the counter. "Your son plowed through my garage. My car is totaled. And you're fining me?" Karen tilted her head, faking sympathy. "It's unfortunate, really. But rules are rules. The community can't be subjected to eyesores. I'm sure a man with your finances can handle repairs quickly." Every word was laced with venom. She wasn't enforcing rules. She was using my success as a weapon against me. Behind her, the other board members shifted uncomfortably, but not one dared challenge her. By the time I walked out, my blood was boiling. I wasn't just dealing with the wreckage of my car and garage. I was being painted as the criminal in this circus. That night, as I passed the crumpled shell of my Lamborghini under the tarp, I made myself a promise. If Karen thought intimidation would break me, she had no idea who she was dealing with. She wanted a war? Fine, I'd give her one. The only question was, how far would she go to shield her reckless son? By the end of the week, I hit my breaking point. The garage was still half collapsed. My Lamborghini sat in pieces, and HOA fines were piling up like bricks, threatening to bury me alive. Karen strutted past my house every day, waving smugly as if she'd already won. But she hadn't counted on one thing. I wasn't the type to roll over. The insurance adjuster soon confirmed what I already suspected. Jason hadn't suffered a brake failure. He'd been driving recklessly. In fact, the black box data revealed he had accelerated seconds before the impact. His entire story was a lie, and now I had the proof. So I called for an emergency HOA meeting, demanding the board hear the evidence. Karen tried to block me, claiming it wasn't within protocol. But when I laid down the accident report, the photos of skid marks, and the SUV's black box data, the room fell silent. Jason hadn't been a victim of faulty brakes. He'd gunned it. Whether it was sheer stupidity or something more malicious, the truth was undeniable. Karen's face went pale. Her voice trembled as she tried to spin the narrative. "He's just a boy. You can't ruin his life over one mistake." I leaned forward, meeting her eyes. "That mistake cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. It could have killed someone. Your son doesn't get to walk away from this like nothing happened." Word spread fast. Neighbors who once stayed quiet started speaking up. They shared their own stories, how Karen fined them unfairly, how Jason tore through the streets like he owned them, how she used her HOA power to shield him. Within days, the board voted to strip Karen of her presidency. She stormed out, vowing revenge, but her power was gone. As for Jason, the police pressed charges for reckless driving and property destruction. His license was suspended, his parents' insurance rates skyrocketed, and the family that once lorded over the neighborhood now found themselves isolated and shunned. It took months of repairs, endless headaches, and far too much money. But eventually my garage was rebuilt. My Lamborghini, piece by painstaking piece, was restored. And when I finally turned the key and heard that engine roar again, it wasn't just horsepower echoing in my ears, it was the sound of victory. Karen thought she could bury me under arrogance and threats. Instead, she buried herself. So tell me, was that revenge or was it justice served? If you enjoyed this wild HOA Karen story, make sure to hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more outrageous neighborhood drama every week.